Cruzo el arco el campeón con el puño The number one tip that I try to give people is I want to see the people use the mouse less. I don't need to see the mouse going across the screen all the time like this because it's very distracting, right? If you're the viewer right now, you can already tell how distracting this mouse movement is, right? You're not focused really on what's going on in the game. You're focused more on the mouse, and you're probably thinking to yourself, man, I wish this mouse would stop moving as much. If you go back and watch any Kespa era, or in general any kind of Korean casting for professional tournaments, for example, like any ASL tournament, any old KSL tournament, the new Superstar League, you'll watch the observer of their mouse movements. They move their mouse very little. Most of the time, the mouse is either moving to click on a unit to look at upgrades, for example, or the mouse is moving on the minimap to click on certain locations that the observer might have a interest in, right? So that's what primarily the mouse should be for. The mouse should not be using to be scrolling, right? You have two ways of scrolling the screen around. One is mouse movement like this, which all of you can see is very distracting and annoying. The other one is using my keyboard. So I'm using the up, down, left, right on my keyboard right now. As you can see, it's much better. It's much smoother. I have it turned up all the way. So if I go to my settings here, my mouse scroll, actually my mouse scroll is right in the middle, but it could be higher, it could be lower. I like to keep it pretty high in terms of gameplay, so I usually don't change it. Mouse scroll, I leave it as normal. But in general, if you wanted to go with the slowest key scroll here, this would be like the smoothest, right? Probably the best. And in fact, probably I should probably just change it to that anyways. But obviously, if you move it to more like moderate speed, it's a little harder to like kind of just tap on it because you're not going to be able to recenter the best using a higher key scroll. But regardless, you know, figure out what suits you. Actually, key scroll lower is probably really, really good in this situation. I can feel it's a lot better and smoother. So that's number one, is avoid mouse scroll like this and use key scroll like this, because obviously, as you can see, the mouse isn't moving just the screen, which is great. That's number one, and that's probably the most important. Number two is, and this ties into the next point, when you're commentating fights that go on, you want to try to stay centered on the action. You don't, like, if for example, right now, if I'm looking at the marine ball here, I can see the meters down here, but it's not great. You want everything to be centered, and you want to kind of predict where the fight is going to take place. So in this case, basically anywhere in between where the current Marines are and where the Mutalisks and the Zerglings are is a really good spot to be in. So right here, this is kind of where the center is going to be, or if the Mutas attack the Marine ball, maybe you want to be biased a little bit towards the Marine ball, like here, where the center of my screen is now in this spot instead. So as I unload the fight, you can see me adjusting the camera, but I don't want to move it too much, right? I just want to make small adjustments. So you see in that entire sequence there, in that little 5 sequence, the Mutas were darting in and out. I didn't move the screen, right? I moved it very minimally. I'm not moving, taking big actions here, or trying to, you know, scroll the mouse while the fight's going on. I want to make sure that I stay centered, and if I need to adjust, I take small little steps here. Small little steps, because I don't need to move the screen. And that's what a lot of people do, is they like to move the screen around too much. So right now, all the fights happening on the screen, I'm not moving my screen whatsoever. We're watching the fight pan out. I could talk about how, you know, the Mutas are darting in, getting Marine kills, and the Marines are living, blah, blah, blah. Like, I could talk about that, and I don't need to move the screen. So that's really important right there, what just happened. So I go back. If I just go back a little bit here. Again, you want to predict where the fight's going to be. Now the Mutas and Lings could have just ran away here, and that's fine. I don't have to move the screen. I would just simply move to the next step of casting, which is going to be, okay, what's my next upgrade, or what's the next point of view that I want to take a look at? What's the next point of interest that the viewers might want to have an idea of? So again, if I go here, I'm not doing anything. Look, I'm literally, my hands are off the keyboard and off the mouse right now. Like, I'm just not doing anything. And it's great for the viewer because they can focus on what's happening on the screen rather than maybe what's happening on with the mouse or the screen moving. Obviously, at the very end there, I had to adjust, but as you can see, I made one adjustment during that entire fight. Obviously, it's something that you're going to have to get practice with and you know, have a better sense of where the fight is going to take place. But in general, this is sort of what you should be doing with your mouse movements. Keep it really nice and simple. Another thing is you can... is using hotkeys during the game. You can use A to kind of remove everything to give you and the viewer a bigger screen to play with. A is the hotkey. I'm hitting A right now. Q, W, E, and R are all the ones that give you all these panels. So Q is the minimap, W is the unit panel, E is the kind of statistics panel, and then R is the side panel here. The replay panel and the production panel are both... unfortunately, they don't have a single hotkey. You'd have to do Alt. For example, Alt-Y is the replay panel, so you'd have to disable that. But in general, you don't really need to touch these if you're a commentator. A is probably just going to be the best thing you can do, or just having R turned off is always a nice thing to get rid of. But in general, A is going to be your best friend. So, for example, if a bigger fight's happening where you don't really need to see the money or the supply or anything, you know, you can show the supply afterwards, which kind of lends a little bit of perspective for the viewer. That's all great, too. So anyways... and the last thing is with the mouse movement again is, again, we don't want to move around too much. We're like, oh, here's a hatchery, and you can see my mouse is moving all over the place. You want to really use the mini-map and try to center on what your next point of interest is. So, for example, let's say, oh, I see the +1 weapons finished. Okay, I go up here. I see that the eBay is started to armor upgrade. I can go to a marine now. Let's find the marine ball. Here's a marine ball. Click on the marine. Oh, look, there's the armor upgrade. But I don't need to, like, you know, spam my mouse everywhere, which distracts the viewer. I'm not trying to do that. I'm trying to make sure that my movements are very crisp. When we see a new building being built, you want to click on that and just kind of highlight that, okay, this is the next point of interest. Okay, we got a Queen's Nest. We have a Hydrating. He's probably researching Lurker upgrade. Or maybe not, because we don't even see it upgraded. Maybe he's already upgraded it. Who knows? And then again, when we go to a fight, we want to stay centered, minimal mouse movement. As you can see here, this was pretty good on my part. I got it pretty well centered there. Don't have to move anything. And then again, if the fight starts getting dragged out, you can always zoom out a little bit, which is always beneficial. Or if, okay, the fight's over, okay, we can zoom back in and we can just move back. Because zooming in is the biggest amount of clarity. You don't want to be zoomed out like this. Okay, I can't really see what's going on. So having like finding a good median between 2 zoomed out and 2 zoomed in is always going to be good. Obviously, with smaller balls like in TVZ, probably you know, having a moderate level of zoom in, zoom out is really good. But in TVP, where you know you have maxed out Terran versus Porous armies having a fight, zooming out pretty large like this is probably going to be more helpful. So those are just
Start with tools and programs that I use. Then we're going to go into the actual workflow / pipeline for how you produce content. And finally, we will be talking about resources for productivity, which is just stuff that I, have in the background. And I'll cover some things that aren't actually on the PowerPoint that I thought of just now. But for the most part, it'll be everything that's in the PowerPoint. So let's get into it. It's very lo-fi, no fancy editing. We're just going real dry here. So hope you guys enjoy. Let's start with tools and programs. The first thing we're going to talk about is mapping and modding, so the tools I use for those. Then we'll go into graphics, audio, resources, and videos, because these all have a part to play in the productions that I make. So let's start with mapping and modding. We're going to start with SEM Draft 2. This is created by Suicidal Insanity. It is hands down the best map making tool out there. It is responsible for all of the maps made in the pro circuit from, whenever SEM Draft came about until now, and will be responsible for all of those in the future. There have been a few attempts with Starforge and CHK Draft to sort of usurp that, or at the very least compete in some way, but they were never finished, and they were never really candle holders, as you could say something like that. I'm sure that candle holder is a word or a phrase used by some people somewhere, and if not, we're going to make it so that it is. So that's your mapping tools. Next, you have the Python Modding Suite by Poicourt. This is for general modding. It covers basically everything, and I only need to supplement with 2 other programs, one of which being Firegraft, which I use for everything that's in those parentheses, button sets, tech tree changes like data requirements and stuff like that, and importing plugins, that sort of thing. Then we have GPTP, a general plugin template project. This is for C++ code that I get Voyager and iQuare to code for me, because I can't code, for plugin changes. No, in all seriousness, I just consult those 2 people before going ahead with my code, or if I have any problems at all, I don't try to solve them on my own at all. I just bother those people. So there you have it. Those are the hidden figures in my workflow. Then we have WinMPQ, which is the other supplementary program to the Python Modding Suite. It's currently the issue with the Python modding suite, PyMPQ, is bugged when extracting audio files, WAVs, and well, I guess it would just be all WAVs, but music and sound files and everything else. So I use WinMPQ for that, just as a supplementary thing. Hopefully it'll be fixed the next time I have to make a workflow update video or something, and I can say, hey, I no longer use WinMPQ. But so far I have to. I use Notepad++ for AI scripts, for dialogue, design notes, basically any sort of notation I have to write, and any sort of code that I have to write that isn't done in Visual Studio, which is what I use for GPTP. And I have been informed that Sublime 3 may be a superior, or at the very least an alternative program to use here, so it's really down to personal preference. Again, this is just what I use, not necessarily the best things to use. I would say the SEM draft and all of like the actual Brood War specific modding stuff, that's all pretty good to use. And I use my phone to record design logs and to listen to design logs as well, and also sometimes to take notes if I'm away from my computer for whatever reason. And I use Sumace, but I don't really anymore because I don't make Brood War, or rather remastered content anymore. I only make content on 161. But if I were to use, for whatever reason, need to make StarCraft remastered content, I would use Sumace. By Nave. So yeah, that's it. As you can see, that was the full bit. So let's go into graphics. Photoshop, and that's it. Nothing else. I just use Photoshop. I have tried PaintShop Pro. I've tried GIMP 2, and neither of them were any good. So that's it. I mean, again, this is what I use. Maybe you're more familiar with Photoshop or with GIMP than Photoshop. Maybe you're more familiar with PaintShop Pro or whatever else. I use this. For audio, I use Audition 1.5 for voice acting and editing. I also use it to arrange music. And I use Audacity to record audio from the internet, because usually I have Audition open, but I guess I could use Audition too if I really wanted to. 1.5 is easy to find. Audition, that is easy to find on a couple of like Pirate Bay and stuff. So if you really need to find it, because that's the version that you want to use too. I know that I think 2 was okay, but I don't remember using it too much. Maybe 3. I don't remember which one it was. One of them was okay, like one of the later versions was okay and still worked with some of the old plugins. But that's why I use 1.5, is because like a lot of the old plugins that I use on basically on Mesk's recommendation, Escato Mesk, recommended some plugins that are only compatible with 1.5 as far as I'm aware. So that's why I use them. Then I use Music Shake for the actual music composition. I may become a big boy later and use something that isn't like a freeware fucking Korean internet program, but right now this is what I use. I have no idea if I'll upgrade to, again, become a big boy, as the note says, by using something that's a bit more, I don't know, like Fruity Loops or something like that. I'm not really sure what the programs would be best for this. I make music that is very specifically catered to what I want to do, and so it's probably not going to be the same stuff that you make if you use it, or that you use if you do make music. Now let's talk about videos. This is the last topic of the tools and programs section. I use Open Broadcast software, I don't remember which one it is, OBS, for recording and streaming. This is really important for when I'm streaming playthroughs to somebody who's not going to play, but still can potentially give me feedback if I'm streaming my own test or something. Also very useful if I'm recording a video that I then can look back at, or that I can upload and, again, share with other people who don't play, but can still give me feedback on voice acting and such. Then there's Handbrake, which is a pretty useful tool for basic compression, especially lately without internet. I've been using my phone to upload all my videos, so unless it's going to be something that's edited, if it's just a run, like a dry OBS run like this, or like any of my playthroughs, I use Handbrake to compress it, and then I just throw it on my phone and upload it there. So pretty useful there. Sony Vegas for editing. This is the only program I'm familiar with. I have tried Premiere. I didn't like it as much, but it's more useful if you're also using Photoshop and After Effects. I use Megui and Debug Mode Frame Server, which is a plugin for Vegas, to encode the Vegas edits at a high enough quality where it's not going to completely destroy me to go back and watch the video afterwards. And also has the added benefit of compressing them a bit more properly than Handbrake does. Let's talk about resources. This is the real last discussion for this particular section. I use the Sen DLDB. That's the Started Network Download Database. that Voyager has maintained pretty actively lately, and basically has most of the Maplantis stuff. I also have the Maplantis DB that I've like gone through and named everything, and that should be on my Mega somewhere. So check the description for a link for that. The pinned links in Newbor on my Discord server are also really useful. I consult those very regularly when I had internet, anyways. And I'll open up like the command guide, the extended command guide that for like Knave and iCore's commands, but also the one that Necron made for the basic AI commands. I'll consult a bunch of other things that are there. DF's resources for colors and such. Pretty useful for when I'm making my own player colors in Photoshop. So I basically consult all that stuff. Obviously, use all of those plugins, or many of those plugins, in my day-to-day modding and mapping adventures. Then for sounds, I find that the BizArchivist sound project, also linked in the description, is pretty useful. This is like a Steam forum project, or at least I found out about it through the Steam forums. Extracts a lot of sounds from video games. You can sift through and find ones that you like, edit them aggressively, because usually they're pretty fucked up when you get them, because nobody has any idea how to be a sound engineer anymore. Nobody's hired for that purpose in modern games. So I usually go to the older games, like the Fear games, some other stuff that I remember having a good to decent sound design, and then I edit the sounds based on that, and I use them in my projects. I also have, there's like many other sound resources, soundsresource.com, and then there's like a tabletop sounds. Let me get you the actual notation here, because I have this listed somewhere. So there's, like I said, soundsresource.com. There's tabletop audio, which is tabletopaudio.com. I'll probably toss a bunch of other things in the description that I don't personally use too often, but I have it on good authority that they're actually pretty good. So yeah, I'll sift through that as time goes on. So that's it for the tools and programs. That's the rundown for all of the different things that I use, some more often than others. Like obviously I use SEM Draft basically every day, but the plugins I may only mess around with once a week or something. It really just depends on what I'm doing. Obviously I don't use sounds every day, but when I'm getting into the audio stages of my project's development, that is when I would use those. Now, let's talk about workflow. So we're going to talk about the directory structure, then we're going to move on to production, eventually moving on to testing, and then releasing your project. Now let's talk about directory structure. Here's an example from Project Hydra. It has the AI audio graphics mod and promo folders, and then some shit for the the project itself, the bat file that compiles it all for SCR, etc. So basically, my directory structure looks very similar to this in every production. I might not have like the Samace file, obviously, because I'm working 161 now, but active projects get folders on my desktop, which contain the AI, which is level design notes, AI scripts, audio, voice acting, music, sound effects. Each map has its own folder, so if we were to click on the audio folder here, which I won't do because it's not actually a folder, it's an image, you would see like Mission 1, Mission 2, Mission 3, all in their own folders for all of the transmissions there. Obviously, that folder would be a lot bigger and a bit more active if there was, I guess, if there was any like custom voice acting besides Ahmed in Project Hydra. Then there's the graphics, which is for units, effects, terrain, user interface. Also a very empty folder for Hydra. Very little stuff in there because I didn't end up really messing around with graphics too much, but it has like the modified command icons and wireframes and stuff. Then there's mod, which is the actual mod files, like units.dat. Sometimes I'll organize these further, like the tile sets and unit graphics will probably go in their own folder called tile set and unit, but for the most part, I just mix like the data files, .dat, and the res files, like the TBL files, basically for unit names and all that stuff, iScripts, AI scripts, all that stuff usually just gets thrown into the base folder. Then we have promo, which is for screenshots and trailer footage, stuff that I'm going to throw on the announcement thread, somewhat like disseminate via YouTube or my Discord server, post on the release party, something like that. So that's how I structure my directories. Moving on to production. This is the biggest part of any project. This is where you'll be spending most of your time. This is what I have worked on the most out of everything else. Everything else is gravy. Structuring your directory so that it looks nice and it works properly. That's great. That will help you pretty. That'll be a pretty big boon for basically reducing the amount of time that you have to sort of battle with whatever you're working with in order to get into that flow state. But production is where you're going to be spending the most of your time, so it's the biggest part of any project. Now, the first phase of production is called the discovery phase. That's what I've been calling it. Basically, I figure out, hey, I have an idea for a project, or hey, there's an old idea that I had a long time ago that I want to try to investigate again. Let's take a look at it. So this is ideas and design logs on the phone, on Notepad++, wherever I'm going to throw them on. Usually a lot of recorded ideas where I'll record some ideas that I have verbally, and then I will listen back to it at double speed and take notes later on or something like that. And this is where I'm basically just riffing on my ideas, trying to develop them into further, basically more fleshed out stuff. And since I always have other projects that are already past the discovery phase to work on, I can usually work on those while I get the discovery phase done for other projects. After that, this is also when, discovery phase is also when there's a lot of like work done on the file structure, basically carving out a space for it on my desktop, or if I don't think it's going to be an active project immediately, I'll still take the notes and put the logs in different folders and stuff, like basically organize the eventual folder structure. Now, then we have map design. This is like actually opening up a CM draft and working on the design, figuring out like what the locale is, what the setting is, what the objective of the mission is, not just for the player, but also like what purpose does this mission serve in the story, in the gameplay, like what kind of challenge am I going to be posing at people, etc. For this process, I usually have the design logs of the project, or music, or podcasts and lectures and whatever else in the background. That helps me work, and I'll get into those in the final section of the entire PowerPoint. Then there's the required mod work. So this is just basically I figure out, I get a list of things that I need to mod, be it custom tiles, custom unit graphics, new unit behaviors through plugin code, obviously the AI scripts and stuff, whatever else I have to put together, request command art from Dark Fantasies, that sort of thing. I get a list of all that stuff that I'm going to need for, say, map 1, and then I just basically chip away at that list until there's nothing there. Usually the first map requires the most amount of initial mod work because it's also the first time you're working on the mod for the project overall, unless you're like making a campaign for a total conversion that's already been done or something. But that's usually where a bulk of the mod work is done, and then I just sort of chip away at whatever's left based on what other maps need to be done. Then there's the AI scripts, the layout, the decor and the triggers of the map itself. This is usually with just music in the background. I find that podcasts distract me when I'm trying to write stuff down or really focus on something. Design, like map design, I don't really mind having podcasts or design logs in there. Design logs obviously help because they give me ideas while I'm working on it. Podcasts are nice ambience that, especially if I don't have like as much music as I would like to listen to, then I'll listen to a podcast instead. But for the most part, map design is easier for me to just sort of freehand, and then I can, make layout changes that are a bit more focused with just music, thinking very actively and intently about the production itself. Then there's script writing. I have nothing in the background for this. I usually talk my way through what the purpose of the lines are, very articulately, almost as if I was recording something, but I'm not. So I probably look like a crazy person, but whatever, look like that anyways. And so this usually has me reading the lines out loud and basically giving like voice acting demos that aren't being recorded. And maybe I do record them just to listen back to them and see what they would sound like trial run voice acting to see, okay, is the script good? Like, does it make sense? And of course, in combined with the triggers, I actually put these scripts, like whatever I've script written for the dialogue. This is stuff gets put into the map, and I don't actually have any audio in there yet, so it's all like combeep.wav or whatever. Now then there's the first tests, which are recorded with OBS. There's nothing in the background. I'm very focused on looking for any problems, but also like trying to play my game as if this was a released product with no problems, taking note of problems, but that's what the recording is there for, so I can go back and catch any issues. Mostly I'm just trying to focus on playing the game the way that I expect other players to, very seriously, trying to win, trying to, get the most efficient thing, maybe see if there's like cheesy things that you can do to really abuse the AI, or maybe see if the AI is unfair or something like that. And then I would move on to the next map in the project after those tests were done, and I had tweaked the map a little bit. Again, the map is not perfect. It's just got the first tests done, doesn't even have audio in it yet. The triggers aren't complete because there's no music in or whatever else, and so on and so forth. But I move on to the next map in the project until every single map in the production is done, quote unquote. Basically all of these steps from the discovery phase, well, I guess from the map design phase, because the discovery phase is more about the overall project, and then there's production from everything else. But the map design to the first test, when all of that stuff is done for all of the projects, then I get into the polish and end stage phase of the design. So this includes audio, voice acting, music, soundstage, figuring out what I'm going to do with the briefing, figuring out what I'm going to do with, I've already script written the briefing, obviously, but I figure out how I'm going to trigger the briefing with the sounds and stuff. There's nothing in the background for this phase. Obviously, I'm working with audio, so I need to be able to intently listen for any problems with it. Then we move on to end stage polish, which is usually with music or nothing in the background. The reason I say maybe there's nothing is because there's a lot of like testing and editing minor things like AI or the map, and then rebooting the exe and testing again. And since I'm in the middle of testing and recording stuff, it usually gets a little weird having music in the background for that, especially since I'm going to be listening for like the music and voice acting and other audio elements while testing, and probably working with more of those as well in the end stage polish phase. So music is really rare to happen in this particular area. And then there's the pre-release test of the entire project. And I basically, after I feel like I've done that end stage polish phase for all of the maps from map 1 to the end, then I say, okay, maybe I take like a day or two break or something, but then when I come back, or maybe I don't take a break at all, I test the entire production from head to toe, catching any final issues that I see, making any final notes, obviously recording this whole thing, and then going back and looking at it. And then, once I feel like the project is basically release ready, in a sense, I release it to my private testers, DF, iQuare, Necron, etc., who will then go and take a look, and we'll get into that now, actually. That's the testing phase. So this is, again, only sent to others when the entire project is done. Obviously, for other people who don't have access to early testers, if they don't want to worry about testing, if they just want to do everything that in the production phase without sending it to the testers, then of course they can just release it at this point. But this is what I do: is I send it to, I have the luxury of having testers, so I send this stuff. I ask testers to record their playthroughs of all of the entire production whenever they can. I expect that this process usually takes about like a month, and then they just give me feedback and send me their recordings whenever they have them. I take a break. This is a few days to a week after sending them the stuff. And then I come back. I make tweaks based on tester feedback, assuming, the break really is important here, because not only are you going to be a little bordering on being burnt out for the fact that you've been working on this for so long, because, again, production takes 6 months to a year for some projects, probably longer for others. And so when you're working with something like that, you should take a break. You should reward yourself for getting it to this point in the production, and then when you come back, you can more honestly assess the entire production and also assess the feedback that testers are giving you, because you won't be like so in the moment, right? You'll have basically had time to meditate and clear your mind of that sort of stuff. So this is really important to take a break at this point, and take breaks throughout. Obviously, I take breaks very frequently for like a day or two, work on something else, work on videos instead of productions, whatever the case may be. Like, that's what I'm doing right now. I've just released Hydra. I was working on Nemesis Chain. I said, wait, I feel like I'm getting burnt out here. Let me work on some one-shots very casually. Let me take a break, and I'll come back to Nemesis Chain. I'll come back to other things when I get internet back, whenever I feel is necessary. So instead, I'm going to focus on videos, and that's what I'm doing now. And so I have the luxury of having a whole multitude of hobbies that I can work on and still feel like I'm creatively satisfying myself. Thankfully, that has not yet exhausted itself. So maybe that will change. Again, if that does, I'll have to release an update to this video, I guess. But that's basically how I work in terms of breaking and not breaking. But after my break in the testing phase, at this point, I'm all in. I mean, obviously, I'm all in because the production phase is done. So the testing phase basically has me test the entire production again after my break, and then I rinse and repeat. So this means without the break, or with way less of a break, like a shorter break, I wait for the testers to give me more feedback, and basically on the changes that I've made and like the new cut of the project, and then I test it again completely until I'm satisfied. So this could be one more time. Maybe there's no time necessary. Maybe the first round of testing is fine, and like for whatever reason, my testers have no suggestions for improvement. They think it's all great. Yes, epic. Go ahead and put it out there. In which case, I guess I would just, do my final test after my break of the entire production from head to toe, and then I would say, okay, it's ready for release. But until I'm satisfied, I test it, I have my testers test it, and I continue to tweak stuff. And again, when I'm satisfied, when I feel it's a release-worthy project, that's when I release. So let's talk about releasing. Trailer. This is a big deal. So usually this is something that I can work on during my break. Obviously, I say I'm taking a break, but it's taking a break from testing and doing that grueling procedure of repeatedly opening up the same map and playing it different ways, forcing yourself to try to play it different ways. This is why testers are really important, obviously. The trailer is pretty good too. Obviously, there's like maybe you haven't done your credits section of your map at this point. Maybe you would do that here as well, but I usually just throw it in there anyways. Which is funny because obviously for my next set of productions, my testers will get to the end of the campaign, see the credits list, and see themselves in the credits before they've actually, I mean, technically they have tested it at that point, but also technically their names are in the credit section before they even test it, which is kind of funny, but whatever. I still give them, they tested my other stuff too, so that's fine. I still give them their accolades. So the trailer requires script writing, voice acting, and video editing, so going back to the tools and programs and stuff, that's obviously pretty important. Now, when it comes to the trailer itself, I usually just try to make something that I feel imparts the themes and central, like, basically the purpose of the campaign, and essentially gives people an honest look at what they can get into, what they can expect, what they're going to get into when they download and play this epic 161 campaign, and go through all of the hassle of downloading a 1 gigabyte file that installs 161 for them. Very big hassle, obviously. No sarcasm at all. So once they do that and they play it, basically the trailer won't be dishonest. Or if it is dishonest for some reason, it'll be like, it'll be worth it. Like, it'll be part of like a twist where like, a subversion of expectations. It'll feel more honest than just lying to them, right? So the trailer has to be reasonable, obviously. Then there's a release party. Once the trailer is done, once the campaign is done, etc., I release the trailer. I make a thread on started.net and a thread on Team Liquid. I may decide to just stop reaching out to anybody with these forums, or maybe stop just posting on Sen, only post it on Team Liquid. I don't know yet. But what I do know is that I will be always posting it on my YouTube channel. Obviously, the trailer itself on my YouTube channel is a big deal. Pretty indicative of a release. And then obviously disseminating it on my Discord server is another thing that I do. Then I hurry up and wait for bug reports and feedback. So this is where, the trailer is done, your project is done, it's out there, but, of course, you're going to get some people who weren't the testers, and you can value some of their feedback or decide to not value their feedback at all, depending on your point of view. And so this would be where you're sending it out there and waiting for those people to play your campaign, comment on YouTube videos, like YouTube playthroughs of your production, whatever. And that's basically it. There's always going to be some minor patches to fix issues, but it's mostly done at this point. Like, you've done 99.999 repeating % of the work. At this point, it's just, you're going to lean back, reap the benefits, maybe take a break, and then get ready to work on the next project. So there you have it. Let's talk about resources for productivity, because this is really the tail end of stuff. So we're going to go over music and podcasts/lectures. So for music, I use these YouTube channels. I use the confused byproduct of a misinformed culture. It's a very long, perhaps melodramatic channel name, but they make good mixes. So this is electronic plus. There's like more stuff other than electronic. They do like some funk and some jazz and whatever else. But for, their big ticket item is their electronic stuff. Synthwave, witch house, whatever. Then there's Odysseus, which is synthwave and more. Sometimes they'll do chill pop or whatever. I don't even know what chill wave, whatever the fuck they call it. I don't follow these genres. They're all dumb, but they sound good. And then there's Epicurus, which does electronic, and they're a little bit more infrequent. Odysseus, and especially Odysseus, but as of right now, Confused Byproduct as well, are pretty active with the mixes that they put out. Epicurus is like, you'll get them like a couple times a year, but still pretty useful to listen to. The 80s guy is a bit more prolific as well. He does electronic. I assume he's a guy based on his YouTube channel. Then there's the Stoned Meadow of Doom for underground rock and metal. This is more on the ambient side. You can, for most releases, you can just put it on and sort of let the droning nature of a lot of the music that they put out there sort of sink into your subconscious as you work. And that can also be useful for when you're not as energetic and you don't really feel like you want to be energetic, but you still want to work. Well, maybe that can help you. Really just depends on your own personal preferences. For underground hip-hop, I turn to Fool's Gold Records. I'm sure there's like a bunch of other mixes that I could go to, a bunch of other artists or YouTube channels that I could look at for this, but I'm very I'm not as well versed on this particular thing, but I found them and found a couple of songs that I liked. They only release like individual songs. They don't release mixes. So it's a little bit less useful for like prolonged streaming or recording or working or whatever, but still useful sometimes. And then there's Bohren and their Club of Gore. This is not just an Echoes joke. I actually do listen to these guys somewhat infrequently. I used to listen to them a lot more, but they are lo-fi ambient jazz. So if you're into that, listen to them. There's also, of course, plenty of other channels and artists you could look up. You can just type in like whatever genre of music I like, mix, and then you can, or like 1 hour mix, 2 hour mix, whatever, and you'll find plenty of mixes that are like that. And some of them will be less frequently less frequent uploaders than others. Some channels will be more prolific than others, and some of them will have higher quality mixes than others. But for the most part, it's actually not about the quality of the songs. It's really just you're using this music as background to help you focus on what you're working on. And this works for me at the very least. Let's talk about podcasts and lectures, and then we'll wrap this baby up. The Joe Rogan Experience. Hi everybody, Joe Rogan all day, fight by night or something. I don't know, but he's a pretty cool guy. He's pretty prolific, especially sometimes like in the past week or so. He's put out a lot of podcasts. Just did Elon Musk, so obviously pretty big deal there. He's a cool guy. He makes some pretty long form podcasts. So if you're just into podcasts more so than music, or if you're in the mood for a podcast, put that on while you work. That's what I do. There's also the Duncan Trussell Family Hour. Duncan Trussell's pretty funny. I think he's probably brain damaged or something, but he's pretty fun to listen to. So he's all about love and peace, man. So give him a kiss. Jordan B. Peterson, a bit of a firebrand in some circles, depending on your political point of view, but I feel that his non-political lectures about the Bible and stuff are pretty interesting, even if I don't buy into the whole religion stuff. So I would suggest, if you're not offended or miffed or whatever about the politics of the person, if you don't really give a shit about that stuff, you just want something interesting and compelling and potentially life-altering or improving to listen to, you can take a listen to those with or without the work that you're doing. You know, you might want to focus a bit more on his stuff if you put more stock in him. But he's helped me out. So then there's Brett Weinstein. He's more interesting. I don't know. Do you say Weinstein? Whatever. Not Harvey Weinstein's brother. Brett Weinstein. I would say that Eric Weinstein is probably pretty useful as well, but his YouTube channel isn't as out there. And I would also say, I didn't put it on this list, but Sam Harris is also pretty useful for some stuff. I'm not as familiar with his work, but I feel like his podcast would be, it's like Waking Up or something. His podcast would be pretty useful as well. Brett Weinstein doesn't have a podcast, but he's made a lot of appearances. His own YouTube channel has a lot of his own lectures, so interesting fellow to listen to. Then for esports, there's Return of By the Numbers. I'm really into Counter-Strike esports, so I listen to Richard Lewis and Thorin talk about that. Then Thorin has his own podcast talk show, I guess, called Counterpoints. So I listen to that sometimes. And of course, Thorin's Esports Salon is also another one for general esports. So if you want to just have some generic shit about esports talking, it's actually pretty funny. You could, boot up any one of these, especially Return of the By the Numbers has a huge amount of banter, fucking hilarious stuff. So of course, shout out to them. And of course, there's audiobooks, especially War of Art by Stephen Pressfield. Not Art of War by whatever that Asian guy was. But yeah, War of Art is way better, way more important. Not as influential and best-selling. Are you fucking kidding me? Who's calling me in the middle of this? Die. So yeah, audiobooks, War of Art, Stephen Pressfield, take a look at it. All right, as you can see, based on that phone call, I have to go.
Oh, hell.
Big job, huh? Huh?
I can't build it. Something's in the way.
Oh, that's just great.
If you see here, I have a lot of scenes. You have to edit the scene. We saw that we can press this button and move the things around, and then we talk about the layers too. If you want to cover some sources, you can do it by changing the arrangement here. And then there's another thing. When you move a source, sometimes you will see that it snaps to the border. See, I don't know if you see it. I'm moving it, and there's a moment when it's like snaps to the border. See?
Yep.
Okay. If you don't want that, you need to hold Control, so you can.
Oh, you can do.
Yeah. Okay. So
Oh.
it's not the step. You can do it with the arrow keys. So you press the arrow keys and you can move it. So that was another way to put the source in the exact way you want. Okay.
Okay.
So it's another trick. Also, as you see here, the OBS tries to maintain the ratio, the aspect when you raise and you shrink the source. If you don't want that, you can hold Shift, and when you hold Shift, you can shrink it, no matter if you lose the aspect. Of course, you don't want to do that, but sometimes maybe you need it. So it's another thing to know, no?
Hey, Coulter.
Yeah.
Looks like you just lost about 10 pounds. Well, it did for a second.
Yeah. Yeah, and maybe I can do this. Yeah. So if you want to maximize a source, you can press Ctrl F and you have your source on full screen. and then you have Control R that it resets the size. If you change the size and don't like it, you press Control R and they goes to the original size. Okay.
Yes, sir.
Those are only a few tips. They're not a big deal, but I don't know. I thought it's worth to mention. Right now, OBS doesn't have a presentation system like XSplit has. If you see XSplit, you can save your presentation and load another. If you have multiple projects, you can have multiple files with their config. Okay. In OBS is a little different. It doesn't have that configuration yet, but you can do it anyway. You have to go to settings, configuration folder, and you will see here that you will not have that many. I have a lot, but the important one is this one. Is scenes.xconfig. This file is where everything I'm doing now is getting saved. Okay. So let's say I want to start a new project and save this one. I need to shut down OBS. I'm not doing right now, obviously. You need to shut down OBS and save this file, backup this file. Okay. If you do it, you can later replace it with another and have multiple configuration. For example, I have the ESL scenes config. So if I'm working in another project, I just delete this one, scenes xconfig, and copy this one over the sync config. Make sense?
Yes, sir.
Okay. I have no idea if I explain fine. I have some problems with pronunciation and vocabulary.
You're fine.
Okay. So for now, OBS doesn't have a way to save your configuration, your scenes and your sources, but this way you can do it anyway. It's not the best thing, but you can do it. And in fact, I want to show more about text. In text here you have a lot of options that XSplit doesn't have. For example, you can put the outline. The outline is very nice, man. It gives a very good looking text. Let me give you an example. No, let's change this one. Well, it's a white a white background, so it doesn't it's not that good in this background. But for example, let me show you. My scoreboard is done with that function. As you can see here, every text has a outline and makes it much better. If you see, I'm going to remove the outline for a second so you see the difference. See? You have
Well, it takes a second.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, makes a huge difference.
So you can make much more nice text with that option because you have an outline. Let me see here. You have the opacity is this to make this transparent. For example, I can put this 20% and you will have a semi-transparent source. So it's very nice to have. What else? You can do a lot of things with this option. You have the scroll here if you want to make a scroll. You can put the background there. Well, I could use some background. Okay, there you go. There you have a background for that particular text. What else? Well, and as you can see, you can, of course, update from a file, as we saw before, and you can put the text in vertical. I'm not sure if you ever will be using that, but you can do it if you want. It's an option. So that's gonna be for text. What else? You can add a slideshow with many images. What else? Faster than the other methods. So I recommend you to use game capture. It's much faster than anything else. For example, I have my. Believe me that game capture is very fast. So it's this program that basically gives you the chance to write the time and countdowns to files. So then later you can use it on your streaming program. For example, let's say I want to show a countdown here. So for example, I go to Chronos. I say like I want to count down to 6 minutes and start. So the program says this is gonna be the file. You obviously you can copy from here. So you copy here, and then we go to text and put the path here. So instead of writing the text, you are saying here that update from that file. So every time that file gets updated, it will show you on the stream. So let's go with that. And for some reason it's small. Oh, a thing about text is don't try to make it bigger by doing this. Don't do this. I'm doing right now to show you, but don't do it. If you see the quality is very bad, you need to put the size here on the font size. You need to increase this number. Don't ever do what I just done, because the quality will suffer. So if you need this number bigger, don't do this. Check the quality. The quality suffers here. So I want it bigger. I just modify this number, and there you go. You have the countdown.
Nice.
Um,
I'm sure you could do a lot, like to add that into your overlay.
Yeah, I have it on this. I think I have it on this. Let me see. I have a waiting screen. This one. There you go. This is a waiting screen, and you can see the same countdown here. Yeah, here on the top.
Because it's a global source, right?
No. It's just a file on my computer, and I'm pointing the text to there. So if I point it in two scenes, it will work anyway. The global scenes is maybe better for logos, as we show, as we shown, because obviously.
Ni hacer ningún registro ni nada. Vamos a create a room. Ponemos el nombre del room, ponele el nombre que quieras. Vamos a ponerle stream y hace clic y ponemos en Enter the Room Control Center in a Director's Role. Eso lo que nos va a hacer es nos va a permitir controlar el stream. Ahora vamos a BD Ninja y vamos a poner Add Your Camera to OBS. Acá vamos a ver todas las opciones igual que antes. Tenemos la cámara frontal, la cámara de atrás, Dual Camera. Tenemos el Video Source, que es la cámara que vamos a elegir. Yo te recomiendo que uses la cámara que está en la parte de atrás, que tiene mayor calidad. Y acá, bueno, obviamente puedes agregarte efectos, tener la parte de atrás blurreada, o hacer un overlay, o poner una máscara anónima, ponerte orejas de perro, y eso que a todo el mundo le encanta ponerse, tipo Snapchat, y puedes poner una contraseña. Ponemos Start y acá arriba vamos a tener el link de View. Vamos a ir a copiar, nos vamos a mandar ese link a nosotros mismos en WhatsApp y ponemos más, navegador, ponemos cámara de celu, aceptar y pones acá el link que mandé al WhatsApp. Y otro truco que te puedo enseñar es poner en la parte de atrás el bitrate. Entonces te lo dejo copiado acá, lo pegas y tenés el 2500. Eso va a hacer que tengas una calidad decente mientras streameas. Acá vamos a poner 920, 1080 y ponemos controlar audio por OBS. Aceptamos. Tu celular como una cámara para tu stream. Ahora te voy a enseñar un truquito rápido de cómo hacer que tu cámara se vea 10 veces mejor. Vamos a hacer una iluminación básica. Lo primero que vas a hacer es apagar todas las luces para ver qué clase de iluminación o qué clase de iluminación necesitas para tu setup. Obviamente siempre puedes tener las luces encendidas dependiendo de cómo se vea. Usa una lámpara o un aro de luz a 45 grados tuyo para que no se vean sombras duras. Yo lo que estoy haciendo ahora es, tengo una luz acá y la estoy reflejando contra la pared para que me pueda iluminar de una manera igual para que se vean los dos ángulos de mi cara sin ninguna sombra extraña. Y estoy usando un aro LED, que ahora os voy a mostrar en pantalla, está ahí, para ponerle un toquecito de luz a la parte de atrás. Otra cosa básica que puedes hacer es hacer lo que hice yo recién. Tenés el Alt. Hacerla más chica va a hacer que se vea mejor. Ahora lo que podemos hacer es ir a, desde acá, podemos hacer clic derecho e ir a filtros. Vamos a ir a filtros de efecto y vamos a agregar un nuevo efecto. Y vamos a poner el que dice filtro de enfoque. Le podés dejar el nombre como está. Y ahí vas a ver que podés modificar la nitidez. Obviamente no queremos que sea súper nítido así, que se ve como medio extraño. Pero lo puedes modificar y ajustar como te convenga. Bueno, obviamente acá puedes ajustarlo como quieras hacerlo. Puedes poner por defecto. Ahí está. Cerrada. También lo que puedes hacer, hay maneras de descargarse filtros. Si tenés una tarjeta Nvidia, puedes descargarte esos filtros y agregarlos. Por ejemplo, hay uno que puedes blurrar el fondo de tu cámara. Obviamente cada filtro que agregas y cada cosa que agregas extra va a hacer que sea más lento el procesamiento de tu computadora. También otra manera que tenés de configurar la cámara, acá puedes poner propiedades y vas a configurar video y acá tenés opciones de brillo, contraste y saturación y obviamente lo mismo que ya usamos un filtro para sharpness que es el filtro de enfoque y bueno, tenemos el balance de blancos, etcétera. Te voy a mostrar más o menos cómo se ve, pero tenemos acá el brillo para que vos controles, tenés el contraste si querés hacerlo como si estuvieras en un filtro de Fotolog, pero bueno, eso lo podés ir manejando, te vas fijando, querés más saturación como si estuvieras recién bronceada, menos saturación como si estuvieras en una película muda o en una película de Tim Burton. Y tenés obviamente el enfoque, el balance de blancos, si tenés una parte que está muy iluminada de tu cara, no sé si ahí se puede ver, bueno ahí, si estoy muy cerca de la luz se ve que estoy iluminada, con ese balance de blanco lo que puedes hacer es bajarle. Y bueno, y tenés grano también, puedes ponerle más sharpness si querés. Y el balance de blancos, el backlight comp y el grano lo puedes dejar como está. Pero así para que veas la diferencia de cómo se ve, cómo mismo se ve mi cámara, que no tiene nada que ver, me gusta más acá. Ponemos aplicar, aceptar y acá estamos.
Ustedes no lo van a ver así, les va a aparecer el teclado completo. Vamos a darle clic derecho, Load Keyboard. En este caso tenemos el 7YT y aquí vamos a ver las diferentes variantes. Lo tenemos en color blanco, lo tenemos transparente, en fin, tenemos una variedad de diferentes mouse. ¿Cómo lo vamos a agregar a nuestro OBS? Clic derecho, agregar, captura de ventana. Aquí en automático lo toma. Para borrar el fondo verde, clic derecho, filtros, agregar, fondo croma y en automático se va a borrar nuestro fondo verde.
Ya activo, ahora sí venimos aquí a abrir este programita que tenemos por acá. Como verán, vamos a abrir la aplicación de escritorio que ya está por aquí, que ya le hemos instalado. Vamos a necesitar algunos archivos, algunos datos más bien que tenemos de, aquí le vamos a dar que sí en redes privadas también, permitir. Y como verán aquí tenemos ya, aquí le damos en aceptar, tenemos ya esta primera interfase que es aquí donde vamos a conectar nuestro OBS Studio. Aquí está OBS, vamos a hacerlo más pequeñito, lo voy a mandar por acá, algo por ahí y algo por acá. Entonces aquí en las herramientas, como verán, tenemos ya el WebSocket Server Settings. Le vamos a dar un clicazo y vean cómo aquí tengo ya el puerto del servidor que está 4444 y la contraseña. Vamos a darle clic donde dice habilitar autenticación. En mi caso, ya para efectos prácticos de este video voy a poner 1, 2, 3, 4 y 5. Y vamos a dar en aceptar. Ahora, de este lado me vengo a la parte que dice OBS. Vean que aquí ya tengo el puerto y le digo 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Le doy en salvar y ya tendríamos conectado nuestro OBS. Pero ahora tenemos que... miren, aquí abajo ya apareció nueva conexión, WebSocket. Ahora tenemos que conectar esto a nuestro teléfono, que es lo que nos importa. Entonces para eso tenemos que irnos a nuestro teléfono. Y aquí, como verán, dice IP address. Entonces, ¿cuál es la IP? Y vamos a conectarnos de preferencia por Wi-Fi. Sí es importante que sea por Wi-Fi. Es esta que tenemos acá arriba. Y entonces escribimos 192. Aquí vamos a escribir 192.168. Aquí escribí 98. 168.0.6. Corroboramos que esté bien. 192.168.0.6. Le damos clic en listo y le damos en conectar por Wi-Fi. Como verán, tenemos ya la conexión en nuestro teléfono. Vamos a seguir minimizando esta pantalla de momento. Y entonces aquí vamos a seleccionar lo que dice OBS Studio. Vean que yo aquí tengo ya mi OBS y también tengo mi OBS por acá. Y tengo solamente 3 escenas. La primera escena, que es la de esta imagen, con una fuente multimedia que no ocupo de momento, voy a borrarla. La segunda, que es el video, y la tercera escena, que es otra imagen. De este lado yo tengo varias opciones, que es el Switch Scene, que pues básicamente aquí es el switcheo de escenas. Como verán, si yo cliqueo aquí en Switch Scene, puedo hacer el cliqueo de las escenas que yo tengo activas de este lado. Entonces, por ejemplo, aquí en Level le voy a dar en, video, ¿no? Y si ustedes ven aquí, mi escena de video está en la segunda. Antes de continuar, quiero que vean cómo aquí dice conectado a RNE-L03, que es mi teléfono. Es decir, que aquí ya reconoció que está conectado la aplicación de escritorio con mi teléfono. Ok, siguiendo con esto, yo aquí le di en level o la etiqueta el video. Y aquí puedo seleccionar un icono o un background. En mi caso voy a seleccionar un background. Le voy a dar aquí en adherir. Y tengo ya aquí en el escritorio una carpeta que dice iconos. Como es el video, le voy a dar clic aquí y le voy a dar en adherir. Y vean cómo aquí ya se coloca esta imagen. Esta imagen la hice en Photoshop y simplemente monté un vector de video. La imagen tiene una medida de 800 por 800 píxeles. Entonces creo que no hay más nada que hacer. Entonces aquí en el video estamos ya en el level y le doy en configuración. Y verán que aquí esta escena me aparecen las mismas escenas que yo tengo aquí en mi OBS Studio, que es escena, video y escena 2. Entonces le doy en video y le doy en save. Ahora, lo único que tengo que hacer es arrastrar esta parte hacia arriba. Y como verán, yo aquí ya tengo en mi teléfono. Vean que aquí ya me aparecen, al momento que yo le doy refresh a mi teléfono, vean que aquí ya me aparecen las 2 escenas que acabo de crear. Agregué este segundo icono que fue de este lado, solamente le di otra vez en Switch Scene y aquí agregué la escena número 2 con un background, con un icono, y vamos a agregar la escena número 3, escena número 2 que está por acá. Si queremos la podemos editar, le damos clic derecho, edit. Y aquí, por ejemplo, podemos cambiar el icono, borrar el icono más bien y poner el background. Y aquí vamos a agregar, por ejemplo, una imagen que tenemos por acá. Le damos en el icono de la imagen y lo adherimos, lo configuramos primero, que es la escena número 2, le damos salvar y entonces acá lo adherimos y vean como aquí en mi teléfono en automático ya cambió la escena 2. Ahora, ¿qué pasa si yo quiero cambiarle el nombre o le doy clic en editar y el nombre está en blanco? Pues simplemente lo cambio a color, por ejemplo rojo, le doy a aceptar y le doy en configurar, save. Y aquí también arrastro y vean que cuando arrastro ya aquí la escena 2 me cambia a color rojo. Así es como funciona básicamente esta aplicación.
Es venirnos aquí a la parte de micrófono AUX. Bueno, entonces ya cuando tengan configurado su micrófono con el OBS, vamos a venir aquí a los 3 puntitos y le vamos a dar a la parte de filtros. Aquí en filtros, primer filtro que vamos a utilizar para llegar a tener esta voz espectacular, lo primero que vamos a agregar es una eliminación de ruido. Esto lo que va a hacer es eliminarnos pues todo el ruido ambiente, pero aquí también hay otro movimiento. Esto yo se lo utilizo aquí en bajo uso de CPU. ¿Por qué? Porque este es una eliminación de ruido más natural. Esta es muy artificial a mi gusto y yo siento que esta es mucho más natural y aparte consume menos recursos. Entonces yo usualmente lo colocaría, a ver, ok, perfecto. Aquí se escucha el ruido, aquí no se escucha ruido. Entonces yo más o menos lo nivelo por aquí. Ahí, ese es el primer parámetro que vamos a mover, eliminación de ruido. Luego, lo que vamos a hacer, amigos, es agregar el tercer parámetro, el tercer filtro, que se llama ecualizador de 3 bandas. Aquí vamos a darle clic al ecualizador de 3 bandas y nos aparece este ecualizador gráfico que pues básicamente nos da 3 frecuencias, altos, medios y bajos. Aquí vamos a mover el alto un poco. Esta es la configuración que yo hago. Ven que ya va cambiando más el audio, mi voz ya se escucha un poco más brillosa y subimos también los bajos. Ahí ya encontramos una buena calidad, pero a mi gusto esta configuración que yo utilizo es bajamos un poco los medios para llegar a tener como ese efecto de podcast, ese efecto de locutor. Hasta este punto ya tenemos una buena configuración de audio. En este punto es muy decente, pero queremos que sea perfecta. Aquí es donde vamos a utilizar el plugin que instalamos al principio, el Real Plug. Como ya lo instalamos, vamos a venir aquí donde dice extensión BST. Ahí le vamos a dar clic, le ponemos el nombre que querramos, yo se lo voy a dejar así tal cual. Y aquí vamos a buscar, mira, aquí se nos abrieron todos los plugins que instalamos con el plugin anterior. Estas son todas las extensiones que trae ese plugin. Y aquí lo que vamos a buscar es el que se llama Rea EQ. EQ, ese es el ecualizador gráfico que vamos a terminar de remasterizar para que la voz quede espectacular. Rea EQ. Vamos a abrir interfaz, entonces se nos va a abrir estos 4 puntos. Aquí haremos exactamente lo mismo. Vamos a resaltar un poco los bajos, resaltamos un poco más los brillos y bajamos un poco los medios. Luego de que tengamos eso, cerramos y ya tendríamos nuestra...
Nos vamos a ir a ajustes de OBS y nos vamos a la sección de audio. Nos aseguramos que la frecuencia de muestreo esté en 48.000 Hz. Usamos el canal estéreo, la parte de los dispositivos, en la parte de salida, nos aseguramos que el modo de salida esté en avanzado, nos vamos a la parte de audio. Los bitrate de audio normalmente están en 96 o en 128. Seleccione la calidad más alta, que es 320. Aquí en la pista de mi micrófono vamos a darle clic a los tres puntitos y nos vamos a filtros. Y estos son los tres filtros que yo utilizo: expansor, compresor y limitador. Los puedes agregar fácilmente, clic derecho, agregar, expansor, compresor y luego al final un limitador. Primero nos vamos al expansor. Lo dejo aquí como expansor y esta es la configuración que yo ocupo. El expansor yo lo utilizo como una especie de eliminación de ruido de fondo. Básicamente el micrófono se activa cuando recibe cierto nivel de audio, pero a la vez funciona para que si hablas un poco más quedito, el audio también pueda aumentar de volumen gracias al expansor, y eso es lo que ayuda a tener un nivel de audio más nivelado. Digamos que los sonidos que puedan estar un poco bajitos puedan aumentar de volumen, y con la ayuda del otro plugin del compresor que ahorita lo voy a mostrar, ayuda a que los volúmenes altos puedan bajar. Entonces ahí es donde se nivela el asunto, se nivela tu micrófono y tienes un audio más plano. Relación de 4:1. Es un estándar en el audio, no me preguntes por qué, todo el mundo lo pone y funciona, y mira, yo digo, si funciona no le muevo. El umbral, que es el que nos ayuda para la eliminación de ruido, lo tengo en menos 36 decibeles. La verdad, el umbral va a depender mucho del ruido que haya en tu habitación. Simplemente tendrás que jugar yendo de un lado al otro para ver dónde te funciona a ti mucho mejor. Aquí en mi estudio, en mi casa, con los ruidos que luego está en la calle afuera de la casa, yo utilizo un umbral de entre menos 30 a menos 39. Pero ese es mi caso. Ahora, sé que tengo primero el expansor, pero el umbral del expansor lo configuré después de configurar el compresor, que va a ser el segundo plugin, pero por el momento seguimos. Con el expansor. Como les digo, personalmente a mí me sirve entre menos 30 y menos 39. Yo en este momento lo tengo en menos 36 decibeles, aunque casi siempre lo utilizo en menos 39. El ataque lo tengo en 1 para que reaccione en chinga. Liberar lo tengo en 125, que es cuando se apaga el filtro. Personalmente a mí me gusta cómo funciona. Y la ganancia de salida lo tengo en más 3 decibeles. Esa ganancia es para que los audios bajitos puedan aumentar de volumen. La ganancia también dependerá de tu micrófono, tu consola, cuánto volumen le quieres meter a los sonidos más bajitos. Si eres alguien que habla un poco bajo, tal vez más 6 decibeles, más 9 decibeles, pero también depende del micrófono. La cosa es jugar tanto con el umbral como con la ganancia, a mi opinión. Posteriormente nos vamos a ir al compresor. Misma forma, relación de 4:1. El umbral lo suelo tener entre menos 15 decibeles a menos 21 decibeles. El compresor lo que hace es que el volumen que esté fuerte lo pueda bajar para que así no clipee. Clipea básicamente es que se sature el audio. A mí me gusta cómo se escucha en menos 15 decibeles. Básicamente lo que hago es bajar 15 decibeles los audios más fuertes. Y así evito que si grito o hablo fuerte, no se sature el audio. El ataque lo tengo en 1 milisegundo, o sea, básicamente el mínimo para que se active igual en chinga. El liberar igual lo tengo en 125. A veces cambio los 125 por 150, pero eso ya depende a gusto tuyo. Recuerden que en este momento estamos con lo del micrófono y la ganancia de salida lo dejo en más 3 decibeles. Aquí está interesante porque con los más 3 decibeles del expansor y los más 3 decibeles del compresor le estoy dando al micrófono una ganancia extra de 6 decibeles. Ya que acabamos de configurar el compresor, me regreso al expansor y aquí es donde les dije hace rato que empiezo a jugar con el umbral del expansor para empezar a eliminar el ruido de fondo. ¿Cómo sabes que se elimina el ruido de fondo? Mientras estás jugando con el umbral del expansor de aquí para allá, deberás hacerlo mientras no estés hablando para que en el momento en el que ya no haya ruido, en ese momento sepas que el ruido ambiental ya va a ser muy difícil que entre al micrófono. Te puedes saltar estos pasos de la forma rápida agregando una eliminación de ruido usando la inteligencia artificial RN Noise de OBS. Pero te soy sincero, muchas veces elimina ruidos que yo quiero si entren al micrófono. También si en algún momento grito fuerte, el micrófono se mutea totalmente, pero el grito es parte del contenido. En ocasiones puedes llegar a sonar robótico y lo más importante es que si no tienes una computadora buena, te puede consumir recursos en general de tu computadora. Bueno, eso es lo que a mí me ha pasado. Y es por eso que prefiero esto del expansor con el compresor y así. Aparte de que me ayuda a capturar más sonidos que evitaría, por ejemplo, el RN Noise. Y así yo puedo tener un mejor control del audio. Finalmente agregamos un limitador, el umbral lo dejo en -6 y el liberar lo tengo hasta el máximo. El umbral básicamente es que si tú gritas o hay un sonido fuerte, el micrófono no pase de esos -6 decibeles, que ahí se quede. ¿Por qué utilizo -6 decibeles? Digamos que es a un estándar y así asegures que no se saturen los audios, pero suenen en todos los dispositivos a un volumen bastante decente. Y como se podrán dar cuenta, el audio de mi micrófono ya mantiene un nivel bastante constante, lo cual a mí me sirve bastante porque además de que en vivo tienen un audio bastante bueno, cuando hago mis videos tutoriales o grabo directamente de OBS, ya no tengo que meterle demasiada postproducción al audio y eso me ayuda a optimizar bastante mi tiempo de edición. Aprovechando que hay un perro ladrando, voy a quitar los filtros. Obviamente se está escuchando demasiado el perro, pero si yo los activo, seguramente el perro ya va a estar eliminado del fondo. Ahora nos vamos a ir con el audio del escritorio. Básicamente es el audio de tu computadora, juegos, Discord, etc. Música, aunque la música yo la tengo en el VOD de Twitch por separado, sin necesidad de el compresor con relación 4:1, un umbral de -33 decibeles, el ataque sí lo tengo no en 1 sino en 6 y el liberar no lo tengo en 125, como en el micrófono, sino que aquí lo tengo en 350. Ganancia de salida no le pongo nada, ya que es el audio directamente del escritorio y bueno, ahí ya sabes, ¿no? En YouTube controlas con la barrita de audio, que en un juego ahí le controlas con el audio del juego y cosas así. Pero aquí en fuente de atenuación y reducción, yo voy a elegir mi micrófono principal. Lo que quiere decir la parte del umbral, el umbral en -33 decibeles, lo que va a hacer es que cuando yo comience a hablar, va a bajar 33 decibeles el audio del escritorio. Para terminar, igual agrego un limitador en el audio del escritorio, pero a diferencia de mi micrófono, que en mi micrófono yo aquí lo tengo en menos 6 decibeles, en el audio del escritorio yo lo voy a dejar en menos 15 decibeles. Y el liberar de igual forma lo dejo hasta un segundo, 1000 milisegundos. Ya nada más como un paréntesis, en el VOD de Twitch tengo básicamente la misma configuración, compresor, pero aquí lo único que cambio es que lo tengo a menos 33 decibeles y el limitador lo tengo a menos 18 y el liberar siempre lo tengo hasta el final, en la pista de la música.
Ahí está. Se ve espectacular, ¿ok? De verdad es de que me ha gustado muchísimo, muchísimo cómo se ve. O sea, parece otro OBS, parece otro programa completamente. Pero mira, te voy a enseñar entendiendo un poquito la lógica de qué es lo que pensaron los de iTunes al momento de diseñar esos paneles, esta herramienta. Y primeramente, creo que una de las cosas más importantes es esta parte. Por ejemplo, aquí tú tienes tu vista live. ¿Qué quiere decir esto? Que aquí en tu vista live, a diferencia de tu vista build o construir, por así decirlo, vas a tener los paneles adecuados y necesarios cuando estés en directo, ¿ok? Por eso aquí no estás viendo, por ejemplo, no sé, fuentes, que en la otra de build sí lo vas a poder encontrar, ¿ok? Aquí en la de build ya vas a poder tener como parecido OBS, fuentes, filtros, Lightroom Vertical también, escenas, etcétera, ¿ok? Y aquí ya puedes tener, por ejemplo, no sé, tu escena principal, tu escena reacción, como tú lo necesites y listo, ¿ok? Entonces aquí en tu canvas vertical no tienes nada y no tienes como tal unas fuentes verticales como anteriormente se podía apreciar, sino que simplemente clic derecho y tú puedes agregar una nueva fuente. Obviamente si yo tengo mi cámara, ok, va a ser mi cámara, ok. Entonces ya con eso, mira, ya la pongo así normalito como a mí me gusta y listo, con eso va a ser más que suficiente. Y así puedes ir agregando como más fuentes, así tal cual lo hacías directamente desde iTunes Vertical, ok. Solamente que aquí como que se ahorraron ese panel y dijeron, bueno, vamos a dejarlo de esta manera. Y en tus escenas verticales, aquí las tienes abajito de tu canvas vertical, clic derecho y puedes darle en que se linkee directamente, por ejemplo, con principal. Si necesitas alguna otra, ok, aquí por ejemplo escena 2, ok, por ejemplo escena 2, ahí está, que se linkee automáticamente con esta reacción. Entonces cuando yo haga este cambio de escena en mi main principal, se va a hacer este cambio de escena acá, pero aquí se fue mi cámara, obviamente yo la puedo volver a poner, aquí está y aquí está. Entonces esto ya lo puedo acomodar un poco más pequeño, poner el juego, la pantalla ahí como yo lo necesite. Y mira, supongamos ahí, para no entrar en tanto detalle. Entonces cuando yo haga ese cambio de escena, pues ya se va a ver ahí. Y después, mira, ahí está, perfecto. Queda bastante bien, ¿ok? Queda bastante bien. Y ya en mi escena live, yo ya tengo linkeado directamente lo mismo. O sea, yo ya lo construí aquí en build y después en live se ve reflejado, ¿ok? Entonces cuando yo hago ese cambio de escena, ya te diste cuenta que hace el cambio de escena. Otra de las cosas, si tienes el iTunes Multistream por acá, aquí está. El multistream, dependiendo a qué canvas quieres hacer stream, main canvas, que sería horizontal o vertical. Tienes el stream info, ok, eso está bastante bueno. Tienes tu chat activity, puedes conectar tanto Twitch, Kick o YouTube como tú lo desees. Y tu actividad, dependiendo pues si van donando o cositas así, actividades que son importantes dentro de tu directo, ok. En la parte superior derecha tienes esos menús que vendrían siendo para grabar, para emitir, cámara virtual, algunos ajustes, obviamente así los tienes. Ya no aparece como tal la parte de ajustes de esos paneles que aparecía en OBS, ya está aquí, me parece bastante interesante la verdad. También tienes estos settings de aquí directamente de los canvas, ok, mira, de Lightroom Stream Suites, ok. Entonces canvas, puedes ir agregando más canvas, ok, ahí está, los outputs, listo. O sea, canvas me refiero a que si tú quieres poner otro más, ya lo tienes aquí, ya te diste cuenta. O sea, puede ser vertical, puede ser horizontal y eso te va a ayudar de verdad muchísimo. Bueno, eso ya lo cierro. Y como te decía, esos paneles son ajustables como tú los desees. Está de verdad bastante interesante. Pruébalo. esos son los que vas a tener que descomprimir porque están en un archivo .zip y dependiendo de tu sistema operativo, pues tu OBS va a reconocer esos plugins. ¿Cómo lo sabemos? Aquí, por ejemplo, en tu micrófono, ok, ahí está. Vamos a darle en filtros. Después, aquí la extensión, ok, la voy a borrar para poderte enseñar desde cero. Ahí está. Y extensión VST 2.x, ¿vale? Ahí está. Aceptar. Y aquí ya tenemos. Yo sé que venís aquí. No, pues enséñame a quitar ruido. Bueno, existen dos en algunos casos. Que por ejemplo aquí es el Noise Remover y el Noise Remover Pro. Entonces vamos a probar el Noise Remover, ¿ok? El primerito que aparece. Ojo, que ya una vez aplicándole, entonces vamos a abrir la interfaz de todos modos para poder mover un poquito los parámetros, ¿ok? Entonces, aquí tienes distintos focus de ecualizador, ¿ok? Ahí está. Low frequency para que baje las frecuencias graves, ¿ok? High, low. Mid frequent focus, ahí está, ¿ok? Y le puedes poner el output, ¿ok? Que sea más output, ahí tú lo estás escuchando más fuerte de lo normal, ¿vale? Se está colando un poquito el ruido y aquí dependiendo vas a ir moviendo como la ganancia. Y aquí el proceso de eliminación de ruido. Ahí no tiene eliminación de ruido, pero ahí sí, ¿ok? Entonces se escucha muy bien. De hecho, este me gusta muchísimo más que el que trae OBS por default. De una vez te lo digo, ¿vale? Entonces, este es uno. Ese es uno que la verdad te sugiero bastante. Otro que es el Noise Remover Pro. Ahí está. Este ya hace un trabajo un poquito más estético, por así decirlo. Porque dependiendo dónde entre tu ruido, vas a poder tener estos parámetros, bajarle, por ejemplo, las frecuencias graves, ¿ok? Subirle a las medias o bajarle las medias, dependiendo, ¿ok? ¿Dónde está tu ruido? Porque si te das cuenta, voy a guardar silencio y mira aquí cómo detecta ruido. ¿Ya viste dónde está mi ruido? Está entre las frecuencias graves y las frecuencias medias, ¿ok? Entonces, es lo que yo puedo hacer para poder eliminar el ruido. Porque si yo le subo, ¿ok? Ahí está. Y le subo por acá, se va a escuchar el ruido, ¿vale? Ahí está. Esa es otra forma en la cual tú vas a poder eliminar el ruido. Está increíble. De verdad, es de que la diferencia está muy buena a comparación del noise removal de OBS. Bueno, vamos Vamos a ver. Otra de las cosas que tienes que considerar es el deezer. ¿Qué es el deezer? Principalmente para las personas que al momento de pronunciar palabras con S suenan como un silbido, suena como muy chillante, como muy agudo. Y eso en ocasiones llega a molestar, ¿ok? Ahorita voy a exagerar un poquito la pronunciación de las S, así, S. Las voy a hasta casi silbar. Mira, ahí está. Aquí, cuando yo habilito esta opción, ¿ok? Voy a identificar si mi audio tiene ese silbido, ¿ok? Esas S pronunciadas, o sea, ya te diste cuenta que se escuchó por ahí como un pequeño silbido, es para poder identificar dónde está esa, pues, información que este plugin nos va a ayudar bastante. De hecho, ya te diste cuenta, aquí en esta partecita lo marca en verdecito aquellas S, ¿vale? Que hace que se escuche así como muy agudito y como que de repente llega a lastimar, ¿vale? Aquí vamos a aumentar un poquito el proceso para que tú lo puedas escuchar mejor. Ir probando. Probamos esa parte de la diferencia para que podamos identificar ese siseo, ¿ok? Aquí es normal, vamos a ver en Broad. Sí, ahí estamos. Sí, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Aquí no tiene proceso y vamos a darle todo el proceso. Ahí está. Ahí se escucha medio raro. Sí, ¿qué tal, amigos? Vamos a dejarlo como en un 40, está bien, ¿ok? Y la plugins que también son muy buenos es el compresor. Aquí como tal no vas a encontrar uno que sea compresor, pero hay uno que hace lo de prácticamente un compresor, o el D-Clipper, ¿ok? Ahí lo tenemos. Mira, nada, es que de verdad está buenísimo. ¿Por qué, amigos? ¿Por qué? Mira, voy a saturar un poco mi micrófono, ¿ok? De hecho, mucho. Ahí ya estoy saturando un poquito, ¿ok? Y lo que hace esto es que el proceso de saturación lo va a bajar. Mira, se lo voy a quitar. Se lo voy a quitar. Aquí. Ahí está. Se escucha muy saturado. Clipea bastante. ¿Ya escuchaste? ¿Se lo pongo? Vaya cambio radical. Vaya cambio de verdad buenísimo. Y aunque yo hable fuerte, hey, 1, 2, 3, en mi interfaz, yo veo que estoy clipeando. Pero mira esta belleza. Ey, o sea, solamente es comparable con el clip guard de los micrófonos de condensador del gato. En verdad está bueno esto. Mira, ahí está, todo saturado, saturado. Y aquí ya no está saturado. Puf. No. No necesito hadas, ¿ok? Es el Positive Remover. ¿Qué es esto, Ángel? ¿Ok? Esto es precisamente como si tuvieras un filtro anti-pop. Pop. Ese filtro anti-pop lo que hace es de que las P's, ¿ok? Ya no son tan explosivas. Ya no, mira, aquí se lo voy a quitar. Pi. P's explosivas, PPPcas. Vamos a ponérselo, PPPcas, ¿ok? PPPcas. Y lo podemos ver incluso aquí, algunas P's. ¿Ya te diste cuenta? Algunas PPPs, ahí está, que son explosivas. Podemos ponerlo en modo extremo, ¿vale? Y aumentarle PPPs, pica papas. Ahí está, ¿vale? Se escucha y se ve de esta manera. La verdad es de que estos plugins, amigos, mío, de verdad, te va a encantar. Y igual, parecido al que elimina las P's explosivas, parecido al deezer, es el D-Breath. ¿Qué es lo que va a hacer? Va a tratar de suprimir esos respiros entre palabras o entre oraciones. O sea, por ejemplo, mira. Ok, ahí está. Lo voy a dejar en cero. Ya escuchaste. Realmente quitó esos, principalmente cuando a alguien se le escucha un micrófono muy sensible y una respiración se escucha bastante. Este te va a ayudar muchísimo. También vas a tener la posibilidad de tener un ecualizador, o sea, automático. Cuando tú abras el Voice Auto Ec, te va a pedir que empieces a hablar para que este plugin automáticamente te ecualice tu voz, que después lo vas a poder configurar. Por ejemplo, más cuerpo, más claridad en tu voz, como más aire, ¿ok? En medio sería lo perfecto. Vamos a ponerle más intensidad, menos intensidad, como tú lo desees, ¿ok? Este ecualizador es una joya. Esto es como lo mejor, así lo top. Lo top quizás de estos plugins. Vas a poder cambiar tu voz, ¿ok? Así como Voice Mode u otros programas. Está muy bueno. Tienes voz de humano, por ejemplo, una voz baby.
¿Está? Hey, ¿qué tal? Vamos, una voz de... Hey, ¿cómo estás? Sí, claro que sí. Una voz de... Deep Voice.
¿Es esto? Vámonos. Oye, suscríbete si te gusta este video. Claro que sí, como de que no. Una voz de robo.
Vamos a ver. Ahí está. Oh my god. Una voz súper natural. Ale.
Ahí está. Oh, sí. Me voy a quedar con la voz de baby.
Ok, ahí está.
Le puedes dar menos
¿Proceso o más proceso? Oh, sí. Ok, a ver. Anime con más proceso. Mucho proceso. Quizás no me gusta tanto, me quedo...
Y también tienes la opción, ¿ok? De ponerlo como en un teléfono. Así es. Es que está buenísimo.
Mira, voy a apagar esto y me voy a quedar con mi micrófono así como si fuera una llamada telefónica, ¿ok? Uf, amigo. Ey, sí. No. Es que está buenísimo. Y aquí tienes como varios presets.
Ahí está. Ok, wow. Arigato. A ver, vamos a probar otro por acá. A ver.
¿Este qué es? Oh, mira. Es que tienes... Es un montón de cosas, amigos. Muchísimo, ¿vale? También tienes un reverb. Remover. Si por ejemplo en tu habitación se escucha como mucho eco, mucha reverberancia, ese te va a ayudar muchísimo, pero mucho. Dios, qué plugins tan pros. Y por último, quiero mostrarte este, ¿ok? Que es para ponerle muchos plugins aquí en uno mismo, en uno solo, ¿vale? Tienes posibilidades a ponerle 5, ¿ok? Entonces, mira, aquí por ejemplo puedes ponerle el Deezer, ¿ok? Después aquí le vas a poner, por ejemplo, un Voice Auto Ec. Mira, aquí es como te decía que tienes que empezar a hablar para que automáticamente te ecualice correctamente. Oh, amigazo, está muy bueno. Después aquí le vas a poner, por ejemplo, no sé, el que tú quieras. Por ejemplo, este de aquí, ¿ok? Y así, varios plugins que los puedes poner en una solo, para no andar poniendo filtro por filtro, así, filtro por filtro. Ya, pon...